Did you ask anything, Scott?
Yeah, at the moment we only have one other participant here, and I guess I'm wondering how would you like to proceed? We could schedule you in at a better time. Maybe we'll get more participants, or I can certainly we can have a one-on-one conversation. I'm available, so how would you prefer to proceed?
No, I leave it up to you.
Okay.
Obviously, your time is important. If you think you would like to proceed, because there may still be an uncertainty in terms of whenever you want to schedule it, whether everybody else will be joining in or not, right? So I'll leave it to you. If you want to reschedule, I'm perfectly fine. I'll see if I can join in the next slot.
Okay. I appreciate that. I know that one of the values of these roundtables is to have the various people, the various voices sharing their own experience. And I know that's very important, and I don't want to take that from you. But I'm also want to honor your time. And if there are things that that we can talk about, I'm open for that as well.
This Scott, for me, we just started the process, and we've got almost an year to plan and then prepare for that. So we still, as early as yesterday, we've been finalizing that what spaces do we want to go and apply. So the purpose for me to come in and join in was to learn from you and everybody else who are probably much higher and ahead of the learning curve.
Okay.
What all does it entail, and see if there is something which is there for me. Of course, you've been in this process for quite long too. So I was looking for learning from you as well.
Sure. Well, I can give you a few things, and then I think and we'll see if others join us. Great. If not,
sure,
then maybe we'll not be as long, and we can get you in on the next call, because I think it would be valuable to have the other ones there as well.
Yeah,
so,
makes sense. Yeah, let's see how far does it go.
Okay. So tell me, you have a child that's finishing up secondary school?
Yeah. So I have a child who's got into the secondary school, and we have what, a year to prepare and start applying. And that's why we just got into the process, started speaking to some of our friends and folks who just made it, and trying to gather as much information as possible. It's a sea of information in terms of the colleges, the courses. It's also a decision on the career choices one has to make. And there's a lot of shades in terms of, even if you choose a stream, what's the best in class college, the cutoffs are high. The questions on what all things would you need to strengthen your candidature. So we're still trying to put all the pieces together.
Okay. And is your child a boy or a girl?
Girl.
Girl. And she's your firstborn?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. And do you have just the one, or do you have others coming behind?
Two of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's the first. She gets to bulldoze the way through, and then
yeah, she's going to show the path.
Yeah, perfect. That's wonderful. I had my son has just finished his graduate school, so I'm not that far ahead of you, but been through that process. And when we were applying to schools in the US, but we were located in Indonesia at the time. And so very familiar with, it's difficult when you can't just visit the schools, and you're trying to collect everything from afar. Did you study in the US yourself?
No.
Okay.
So I'm from India. I've studied all my stayed here. But I've got my sisters, my brothers, all of them are there in US. So they have been a source of some bit of information. And some of my cousins are also studying right now in US.
Okay.
So we're trying to get in touch with them, understand the process, and of course there's a whole sea of internet to help us find out hopefully something.
It's a difficult situation, because all the information you need is available, but there's so much information, it's almost too much. It's an overload of information. It's all there if you can just find it. Is your daughter decided her course of study, or where is she in that process?
Yeah, so she's narrowing down. So at least from all the options now moving from STEM to now moving to engineering. Now she's kind of narrowing down on two or three streams of engineering.
Okay.
So that's where we reached till yesterday night. I mean, few
Okay,
days
very
back.
good. Oh, you're
Yeah,
right in the middle of it then.
yeah. So we started now narrowing down on a couple of courses. Now we plan to get into listing down all the colleges and then see what are the requirements. Of course, the stream which she is choosing, one of the most sought after. So we'll plan to keep some of the backups and let's see how it goes
Yeah,
because I
of
think it
course.
all depends on her performance in the SAT and those kind of exams.
Sure. Yeah, it sounds like you have a very pragmatic view of this process, and you're starting off in a very good place. Um, so
Yeah.
that's very encouraging. I've worked with a lot of families from a lot of different places, and each one is very unique. Not only does the student unique, but the school situation, what they want to study, and then each family is unique and sometimes comes in with very unrealistic expectations, and that makes the process more difficult. But I think you have a very good perspective on it.
Thanks, Scott.
What where did your daughter attend secondary school?
So she's been studying in India, and I think for us the decision to go out or stay in India was dependent on how does she fare in the exams, which is the national level exams.
Sure.
So it's a mixed bag on as in terms of sciences. She has done okay. She's done good in mathematics, very good in computers. So that is giving us some hope that at least basis this there would be some hope that she will be able to get into some of the engineering courses, especially on the computer science side or maybe other stream which she want to pursue.
Sure.
Where we are struggling right now, and I don't know whether that's the question which you intend to ask, is that's only one point of reference. And I'm sure the campuses that would be looking at many more points to decide whether to accept the applicant. So what are the other things which are required to strengthen her case?
Sure.
If you're getting into computer sciences, then you should have knowledge about uh, coding, you should have knowledge about mathematics. But how do I certify? How do we get her certified saying that, yeah, she is very good? Or more importantly, one thing which is still not very clear to us is this whole maze of showing social work and related to the stream which she's trying to pursue. So that's that's something which
Yeah.
is
Yeah, that's one of the things that when you're marrying, so from India, the Indian system is built on the British system, and the American
Mhm.
system is very different. And it's built originally on the liberal arts system, so um, not skill based, but um, character based or citizenship based, and so
Okay.
it's a very different model. That's why when you look at applying to American schools, they're asking questions about things that don't seem at all related to your field of study. They're asking about, what activities that was the person involved in high school, and volunteerism and other things like that, which don't seem to have any relationship to their course of interest. And that's because the American system is looking for the type of person, the balanced person. And they use that as a predictor of whether the student will be successful, not only in school, but in life. But in school, recognizing that the academics is one hand, but there's much more involved in academic life than just the study of that course. And so by seeing how a student was involved in their community, in their school, in volunteerism and other activities, it helps them predict whether they'll be successful in their learning environment. And they recognize, each school recognizes that their environment is unique.
Okay.
So that's why they're asking for that kind of thing. And that's a good question to ask, because that's what differentiates a student, their profile, and makes them admittable to an American school, is that comparison information. So in the British system, the higher score gets admitted above a lower score, and it's pretty straight line. But in the American system, the score is literally only one piece. When I was an admission counselor, I had 12 points of data that I collected on each student, and their national board exams was literally one of the 12 points that helped us predict whether they would be successful. We need to know if they're going to be academically viable. Can they do the rigor, the coursework? But then they also want to know, what do they bring to our community? Will they be able to fend for themselves and be successful, be safe, be engaged? How will they be in the classroom? And so it's kind of a larger story that you're wanting to tell for admission to an American in a school.
Now, what are these 12 data points you said? Well, that's an interesting piece. What range?
Yeah,
or what?
So the points that I was looking at, and each school and actually each admissions officer kind of has their own system. So that's part of the reason families use services like us, as we can help predict their system. But for me, I was looking at their school marks. I wanted to know kind of how they did in class, in addition to how they did on tests. I also wanted to know their social activity or leadership background. Was there an opportunity for them? When they had opportunities, did they participate? How do they deal with stress? So I looked at sports or extracurricular activities. We wanted to know if they were involved in, had developed any music skills. We wanted to know about their social life, not so much like, we wanted to know how they balance their academics and social life. And so we were looking at indicators that showed that how they might distinguish themselves. We were trying to predict, we were looking for campus leaders. We were looking for culture shapers. So we wanted people to come in and help build our culture as a campus. And we knew that international students sometimes are fewer in number than their American colleagues, and therefore took on a leadership to essentially represent their country and culture. Then we wanted to know how that student would do that. So those were some of the points.
No, so I'm just building on this. So, for example, your thoughts are helpful. So my child has participated in sports, and eventually the admission office will look for some kind of proof or certification to say that whether that child is actually excel. So yes, she in terms of sports activity, she's won a couple of medals, but that's at the school level, right?
Mhm.
So now whether that's good enough or not, that's question mark. In terms of music, yes, she has interest. She plays one of the instruments, guitar. But that, if we just say that, okay, yes, she plays guitar versus, let's say, getting a certification, I mean, that's a different thing. And that's why we still have 1 year to get those necessary certificates. So we want to know whether that's something which is worthwhile to pursue at this stage, given the fact that the admission council will know that most of the students would have probably created certificates in last 1 year, or probably would have accelerated their social activity just to strengthen their case. So does the duration, or I mean, we've got one of the feedback, there's no point start working on a social cause, because most of the admin council know that, I mean, all these activities happened only in last 6 months. We also reached out to some of the organizations, but they also, in India at least, they said that we don't encourage children below 18 years to come in. So, I mean, there are also age restrictions. So,
Yeah.
how do we overcome that? Those are the challenges which we are
Yeah.
struggling with.
A lot of what I do with the students that I work with is help them document what they've already done. So not
Okay.
necessarily, sometimes do new things if they've been out of balance. So for example, I had one student who was very involved in music, and we had lots of documentation. We could get references from teachers. We could document, places that she played. She played in orchestras. That was pretty easy to document, and she'd been doing that a long time.
Mm.
But she had never had any experience on the charitable side, and so we did encourage her to do some volunteerism for the less fortunate in her community. And she met with some people and kind of organized an effort among some other students to address a need that was in her community. And it was a standout. It was unique in that she didn't do it during she didn't have a record of 4 or 5 years of doing that. But it was life-changing, and she could reflect on that, and that it became part of her story. And so doing things simply for the certificate or simply to show it on the resume is probably not worth doing a lot of things like that. But doing a significant thing that your daughter can really learn from, and can reflect on, might be something that she would then be writing about in her essays. Like if my son didn't do a lot of, I mean, he sang, and he played the trumpet in some, but his significant interest in music was actually in writing music and poetry. So he submitted, as part of his essay, he submitted a portion of a song he wrote up, and
Oh,
told that story. And that, again, captured the attention of the admissions counselor, right? You want to stand out by the uniqueness of your story. If something, it was important to him, and therefore became a part of who he was.
okay. And these documentations, uh, so there is a school certificate, and there is, let's say, as or is part of one of the social organization trying to get in and engage with one of the social organization. Does the admission council reach out to the source and try to find out what is the scale of that
That
activity?
participation, yeah. So a lot. So when you've been admission counselors for a long time, you can kind of tell when it's made up and when it's part of their real story. And so we will verify something if it was portrayed, if it was told as significant part of their story and it doesn't ring true, then we might follow up with something. But a lot of times what students will do is simply have an activity resume that kind of lists the things they've done, how long they did them, who were the significant contact points for that, and just like you would a CV or a resume for a job.
Mhm.
And as an admissions counselor, I rarely followed up on those unless I had concerns or felt I needed to. And one of the ways that would happen is if somebody shows a lot of significance in music, and in our conversation they don't appear to know anything about music, then that's a concern for me. And then so now I'm reflecting back and thinking, is there something about this story that doesn't ring true?
No,
You
no,
know,
no, that's understood, Scott.
yeah.
I think the question is, so I'll give you an example. We were looking at how do we strengthen our case into a social cause? And we started identifying organizations of repute which are known, so that there's no question on the kind of work um, or the organization itself. So actually, we reached out to somebody I had known in UNICEF. Okay, we said, okay, it's a great name, and if you say UNICEF, then there won't be any question.
Right.
But that person, he said that, no, sorry, we don't allow anybody below 18 years to come and volunteer.
Participate.
Right. So now I'm struggling in terms of after UNICEF, which is the other organization which is known, and whether and how do I showcase whether that she has been actively participating for number of years, number one, and even if it's for few months, it should get counted.
Mhm.
The feedback which I'm getting is that if you do it so late, everybody will pick up that, I mean, you're just picking up recently, and then all the time and effort which you're going to put is going to be wasted. Unless you say that, no, we need to show at least one social cause. Uh, the duration is not an issue, but even for a short duration, it's good enough. What's your view? I mean,
Yeah.
having no or even for 6 months is good enough than having nothing.
I think it depends. That's the standard
Okay.
answer for everything, right? It depends. But the slightly longer answer is if the student, I would want to talk to your daughter and kind of explore the things that she may have already done some things that meet the requirements. Even if it's
She's actually with me. I mean, she's hearing this conversation, but unlikely that there is something which can stand out because eventually everybody will ask for a certificate. Think that what is the proof that you've done it, and is it sizable enough or not?
Yeah. So my recommendation is always, if there's nothing in your record, then do something, particularly
Okay.
in that side of thing. And then the way to document it is through your own story. So, so let's say you're going to do something, a volunteer, and you're going to help with a children's center for 6 months, um, and and um, and maybe you're going to help them. Maybe it's a school that has some kind of computer activity for kids after school, and so you're gonna help there for 6 months. So then you journal for that 6 months. You journal your activity. So what kind of things did you do today? Those kind of things, and that journal and your reflections on that, it comes out in a short essay, a paragraph or two, that you include with your CV, with your resume, with your application, as part of and you point to it whenever you have opportunity in your application. And you point to that reflection, and that reflection tells me, one, you did it. Two, it helps me understand how you reflect, how you think, which is an important part of what I'm looking for in a student. And so it does those two things, and that therefore it's selfless, and there's good reflection that comes from that. And then it shows me how you think, and it also shows me how you write, which is an important characteristic of college. And so that writing and that reflection and the service are all come out in one piece, which is nice.
Okay. And Scott, one scenario, let's say if she decides to apply for two different streams, and one of the streams is computer sciences, where we build a case, just thinking aloud, that she has been associated with a social cause where computer literacy was being provided to underprivileged children, right? So that's one of
Right.
the social cause is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But that's very specific to that stream. Now, let's say if you go to a different stream, for example, psychology, let's say, then she'll probably talk about mental illness and health and those kind of things. So does these application gets shared across colleges, We highlight one thing in one college, other college gets a different story.
They generally do not get shared across colleges. Um,
In
and
US.
in the US.
Okay.
In general, that there's going to be some exceptions to that, but just generally it's not going to be. But what I will say is that she can talk about the psychology and the social development of the participants in that computer literacy program. And, you know, and the psychology points to that degree, and the literacy and the computer science points to that degree. But that reflection and how they interact is actually good for both. And so there's value in it, even if it's not directly applied. So even if she did a volunteer program that was kind of specific to one area of interest for her, that experience is still going to be valuable in other areas of other fields of study. And it speaks to her character and her personality, which is valuable in any program.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm building on these thoughts. I mean, this is where, so we are now kind of narrowing down on certain streams. I'm trying to look at how do I show that she's really keen to pursue this stream and the social impact, while I'm also working on one of my friends has runs an NGO which is not related with computer sciences, but it's about it's about general upliftment, and
Sure.
maybe go and connect with them. So
Yeah.
these are things which are there. So you're saying showing a social cause and volunteering is important.
It is.
And out of 12, when I wrote down your points, I just listed 6 of them, which is school mark, social activity, extracurricular. You talk about bringing something to community. Are there any other points which also gets looked
I
at
look
and we start building on?
Yeah, so because I was at a liberal arts schools, we were looking at the whole person. So we were looking at um, sports and physical wellness. We were looking at spiritual wellness. We were looking at what we called social wellness or engagement across social platforms. So we wanted to know how they interacted with their peers, and we would gather that. It was a point on my system, but it was gathered from their essay or their references. I was looking for when teachers talked about the student, I wanted to hear how they talked about how they interacted with their classmates. And so I was collecting that information because I wanted to predict. And all leadership was also another one. We wanted to know, was this a student who might be a campus leader, be a resident assistant, or be involved in social causes on campus. So I think that was maybe the other one.
Okay. And so while there are these 12 broad areas, and maybe 14 for some or 10 for some of the campuses, do they change by the course which one is applying? In the sense that for the same college, the evaluation for specifically in engineering versus a psychology, your number of, or let's say the parameters would vary. It should intuitively do, right?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And they're going to be unique for the campus. And the frustrating part for the parent is that the values in those different categories may change. So, for example, a student who scores very well in one set of areas, if I have 3 or 4 applicants that all score well in there, it kind of devalues them in a way, because now I'm looking for another applicant that maybe brings balance. So I'm looking for different characteristics now that I value higher to create this kind of balanced profile of all my students. And that's completely unpredictable. You can't control any aspect of that as a parent or student. But it kind of points to the importance of being able to tell your story effectively And then the admissions counselor, that's out of your control. But what you can control is telling your own story and letting them know about your own growth and balance and uniqueness. And then if you
Okay.
fit, that's up to them whether or not you fit. You can't control that, but what you can control is how well you tell your story.
Okay. So in terms of input variables, so the admission council will look at grade points in terms of what you whatever you scored. They will
Yeah,
look at your essay and the reference letter. There's only three things they will look at, right?
those are the main
Or
things.
anything.
Yes.
And all the annexures which support them, which is the
Yeah.
certificates for participating or yeah, that's that. I don't think is there anything else which is required other than this four, which is essay, grade points, references, and your certificate for whatever participates in.
Yep. That's basically it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And
I have
since you
I have a checklist that we use with the students I work with, and I will send it to you after we meet today.
yeah, that would be very nice.
And it basically takes, and it works for every college, pretty much in every country, and it's a one page that helps you sort out everything you need. And then as you go through it, some schools will not require that, some of those individual things, and you'll just cross them out for that school. But you basically create one checklist for each school, and it makes it much simpler to keep track of what every different school and every different program, and just all in one sheet.
Oh, that's impressive. I mean, I'm sure because you've gone through this journey. I mean, you've gone through the grind. So,
Yeah.
no, that will be very useful. And I know it may be stupid to ask, but is there any way to find out which college is looking for what parameter, or are there, I would say, public boards where parents actually share their experiences so we can dip into their learning that this specific college for this course, this is what actually mattered?
That's a great question. The general answer is the schools kind of keep it a secret, not to be exclusive, but because if
They
they
don't want the people to get leaked as in
they don't want
hack
people to simply apply to a formula. They want to gather it organically, and because it's fairly fluid. But there are forums, there are conversations happening. So let me see if I can track that down, and maybe send you a link. Let me do a little research on that. I haven't worked with that question recently, so I need to do a little bit of research. But I think there are some places where you can get some of that information.
Yeah, see, so while we are still getting into decision on what career she would like to pursue or may work for her, uh, what we're also trying to find out to strengthen her case for that career, what are the things we should build on, right? So grades are given, she can do more than that. Should she get certificate from a schooling college that she's done additional coding or interest in computer sciences, or let's say in social cause, what are the element, or let's say that these are the kind of questions. And maybe let's say see, everybody aspires to get into an Ivy league, and we are we are realistic that if it comes, it's we are lucky, right? But I think a realistic saying that okay, anything a shade below than that is also okay, as long as she gets the course of her interest, and
Right.
which opens up her career opportunity.
Yeah.
But let's say a requirement for Ivy League would just be getting something more, which we don't want to discover at a later date. So might as well keep it ready. It will take 6 months, 1 year to prepare that. And if we get it good enough, otherwise at least our the backup is already there in terms of pursuing that thing.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, that's one of the reasons I've come to some of the conclusions I've come to is because the Ivy League is kind of the standard, right? So if you're aiming at the Ivy League, even if it doesn't work for you, or even if it's not a good fit. I have students who choose not to attend Ivy League because it's not, once they discover what they want, Ivy League isn't always the best place to get that. But we still use the Ivy League, and I do in my preparation, to say, what is it that Harvard is looking for? And then all the other colleges are kind of looking for similar things, right? I mean, if I aim at Harvard, so that's why I know that volunteerism is one of the things that speaks highly of a candidate, regardless. I know the Ivy Leagues look very, very closely at that stuff, at volunteerism.
Okay.
Really. And so I would say, kind of going forward, that's a great place. You guys are right on. That's going to be a distinctive, and it's going to work well, whether she goes, is applying to Ivy League or to a top tier, a Georgia Tech or Purdue or one of those other engineering programs, or to a smaller liberal arts school that also has engineering. It's that selfless activity, and the reflection on it is going to speak well for her. It's going to distinguish her from her peers that come in with just test scores. That will separate her out in that process.
So you're saying that, prepare yourself for the Ivy League, the rest of, if you prepare for Ivy League, automatically the rest of the colleges will be taken care of.
Yeah, I kind of like, if I'm looking at if I'm looking at Harvard requirements and recommendations, and looking at reflections, parents, and students, what I did to help me get in, and I got into Harvard. Here are some of the things that I did that helped. Those reflections are going to be easily transferable to most schools. They're going to transfer across schools, because they're tried and true activity behaviors. So I don't know if that answers your question directly, but that's kind of.
I understand. See, there are many things which are not known. We'll have to probably, for us, even to coming to a level where the course is kind of, let's say the list of courses is now getting narrowed. Now it's up to looking at what themes these colleges do. I want to clarify, you said that Harvard looks at social causes. Does this mean that there are some colleges, like, let's say, Stanford, or I don't know which all colleges would be, which have a completely different way of evaluating, which is not at all looking at social cause?
Probably. But the short answer is, most of them are looking at the breadth of the student. They want a wider picture than just specific area of interest and strength in that area. They're wanting to see a better picture of the student. Sometimes I talk about college application as kind of like dating, where you want to get to know them to see if it's good for you, like you should go there, but you also want them to get to know you, and not just, like on a date, you don't only just talk about your job, right? You want to talk about your interests and your favorite movie and the book that you find interesting, and you want to give them a broader picture of who you are, what your interests are. So, and the better they know you, the more likely they are to admit you. It's easier for them to see how you'll be successful there.
Okay. Do they also see the social presence? Let's say LinkedIn or
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah?
Yes.
Is that something which is now catching up?
Absolutely. A good admissions counselor will check social platforms.
And do they ask for the links, so that then we need to start building on them?
No, you don't need to do anything special for them. If you don't have an Instagram, that's fine. That's part of your story. So if you have a Facebook or an Instagram or a YouTube channel, if you have that and that's something you've been active with, that's part of your story. So maybe you want to share that. But if you don't have a presence online, I don't think it hurts you. If it looks like you tried to scrub your pattern, like if you've had an account on Instagram for 10 years, it was very active, and all of a sudden everything is empty, that's suspicious. But or if you've just, there's no need to create an account and try to fill it full of stuff just for admissions. That part of it is not necessary.
No, I understand that. My question is, given the fact that now at least LinkedIn is being checked for the professional references or to see the work, at least for a working professional, by the time she graduates or by the time she gets into the college, I mean, I suspect that maybe that will be checked. The only thing which I was trying to ask you is that, are they asking for the links? If they are, then, I mean, we never know whether they're checking or not.
Yeah, I've not had any of my students report that that information was requested by the school.
Okay, in the form also.
Yeah, and I haven't seen it on the forms.
Okay.
LinkedIn is a great example, because if I were advising a student, LinkedIn is a great place to capture those stories, your story, and to tell your story. So create your activity CV and put it on LinkedIn. To create, maybe you're doing volunteerism, and maybe you shoot a short video interviewing the director of the program and talking about, how it's important, and you offer your reflection, and you put that video on LinkedIn. That creates kind of a portfolio of your story, and I think that could be valuable in your admissions process. And then you would share it. Then you would say, and if you want more information about this, it's on my LinkedIn. And it makes it easy for the admissions counselor. When I was in that job, if somebody shared that with me, I would definitely check it. And now I'm getting to know you better, and distinguishing you from the other applicants. So I think it's very positive.
Yeah, because I'm thinking loud in the social cause, while we are trying to get to the best of the institutes, if it's not possible, then even if I go to a small, but we start documenting. You said about including that in the story, but we start
documenting it and put that on,
and then and then say that, why don't you go and look at my LinkedIn profile? I've been very actively doing it, almost one activity every month, and these are my stories. Maybe it will help differentiate the applicant, right?
Yeah, so, absolutely. I like it.
Sharing with you. Yeah. Because the biggest struggle is, I mean, you can get certificates, and there would be many students who would, for want of a better word, fudge certificates also. I mean, you will have 80% good certificates, and another 20%, which would just be your friends, neighbors, right? Who would say, okay, go ahead and do it. So how do you create an authentic application? I think that's what I'm wondering, which is also aligned to your stream, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And Scott, just building on this thought, do you have any sense of weightage? I heard you saying that British schools have higher weightage and it's far more linear in terms of your education, but in the US colleges, maybe they will probably give 50% weightage to the academics, and another 50% on the whole well-rounded person you are. Any estimate you have?
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example, and I give this example often. One particular year, I had 3 applicants that had perfect SAT scores. Oh, they got full scores. I had 3 applicants. In all my years, 10 years there, I only had 1 other perfect score in all the 10 years, but that one year I had 3. And one of the students became one of our top recruits. We wanted that student quite badly. We admitted him quickly. We offered financial aid. We were very excited about that one student. One of the students we did not admit at all. He had a perfect SAT score, and we did not offer him admission. And then the third one, we gave him admission, but we didn't recruit him. If she wanted to come, she would have been welcome, but we didn't really, she wasn't otherwise very interesting to us.
Okay.
As a campus, but the one student was very interesting to us. His areas of interest were good. His essay was amazing. His references were unbelievable. Like he was clearly special and well regarded by his teachers, by his community. The one we didn't admit, his references they weren't, I don't know why he asked them to write references, because they were not good. Like they didn't say this is a bad person, but that's the information we got. That's how it sounded to us. It's like, this person is very selfish, very only interested in themselves, very not a good classmate, not really engaged in their school. This is a person who just studied, got good grades. He's smart. He can get good grades and he can score well on tests. But that's all there was to him. That's how we took it. That's how it looked to us. So yes, I don't know how things weigh, and each school is going to weigh things differently based on their profile. I think of test scores and GPA as kind of a key. If you have the minimum, whatever that is in their mind, then you've opened that one door, and now we're interested in more of your story.
Okay.
And each school is going to have kind of their standard minimum in there, even if it's only in their own mind. And if you don't meet the minimum in their mind, then they're thinking this is probably not going to be a good fit for us.
So minimum in SAT and GPA to get considered as an applicant, and after that it's the non-SAT and not GPA to see what
it's the other information. Yep.
Yeah, I can understand. Yeah, we've got some exams in India where you have an exam, and then after that you have interviews and your group discussion. Depending on how you're performing, then you do that, and they don't look at the total score earlier. I mean the gate marks which are there.
Yeah.
Those are getting in. Okay. Just one or two more questions. I don't know whether I exceeded my time. One, in terms of the exams which are required. So we've been trying to find out. We've got one SAT, and then we've got IELTS which are there. So IELTS and SAT is what we are working on. Do you think that is good enough, or do you, in your experience, we need to substitute any of the exams at TOEFL or anything else which is there, or this is good enough to cover everything?
Yeah. From India, if they're still asking for TOEFL, then I have some questions about that school. You shouldn't need TOEFL. If a school requires it for all international students, then you should ask for a waiver, because you're from an English-speaking country. You don't need TOEFL. SAT is enough.
So IELTS and SAT is good enough. Is that?
Yep.
Okay, and other than SAT, no other exam is required to be given. Right?
There are some colleges that have a preference for ACT. My general advice is, if you have either ACT or SAT, you probably don't need to do the other one. One is usually enough.
So just work on SAT, right? That's what you're suggesting. Okay. And in terms of references, is there a cap on number of references you can suggest as in submit? Sorry.
So, sometimes a school will say we only want 2 or we only want 3. And they may only have a place in their system for you to upload, 2 or 3. My general rule is collect references as frequently as you can from whatever people you can, and find a way to share those with the school. So that's another place where, whether they're on your LinkedIn or they're in a shared folder that you submit and send to your admissions counselor, they may not be able to enter in the system officially, but I think I think having 3 or 4 or 5 good references is helpful.
So I think I got that, and it's a good idea, which is to collect references as you go in next 2 years. You never know which one you would like to show in which applicant, right? I think that's the point.
And there are some of the schools will actually have a reference form that you'll have to send. You'll send a link to one of your references, and that they're going to fill out the form then online. But I think collect the letters from a number of people along the way and include those as well. Yes.
Yeah, because I mean, I studied almost 2.5, 3 decades back. At that time, they were asking for a sealed envelope from the reference, and that would go straight to the college. And I was just wondering, if we get a reference now, it will be known to everybody whether to give it or not. And do they specify in terms of you need to get references only from maybe your teacher or your close friend? Are there some limitations out there so we can start working on that?
So most, I don't know if most. I always wanted an academic reference and a social reference.
Okay.
So I always wanted, sometimes they'll say we want 2 academic references. So we want 2 teachers or people who know your academic background. Sometimes they won't specify. And if they don't specify, give them a social reference and an academic reference. So give them or if you have a teacher who can speak to both, that's nice too. But otherwise have a teacher or somebody from your school, principal, somebody who can speak about your academic, and then someone who can speak more about your personality, your character. So a character reference and an academic reference is what I recommend.
Yeah, I think this conversation has been quite useful for me. I don't know what were you planning to do, but I think
this is, to me, this is the most valuable. If I can provide value, then that's a win, right? You got something you needed out of it that's very helpful. And it's been very helpful for me to hear your questions, because I know that's then one of the things that I wanted to get from this roundtable is what our current families most worried about, most concerned about, and I get to hear that in some of the way you asked your questions. So that was very helpful to me. I will say that we didn't cover anything that I was going to talk about in the roundtable. So we'll get you on the list for when we do a roundtable again, and hopefully you can join there and get some more information.
That will be very nice. Got one last question which just came to my mind. See, we're coming from India. Obviously, the cost of education will be prohibitive when you go to US. What would help strengthen our case for scholarship, or it is purely on first come first base, or depending on any thoughts, views, experience?
Yeah. So my recommendation is to be very when they ask the questions about finances, be very truthful. Whatever the truth is. And if I felt like an applicant was just trying to get as much money from me, the school, as possible, it's a relationship, right? So that wasn't as fun for me to work with as somebody who was saying, here's what we can do, and we really want to come to your school, but this is what it's going to take. This is just the reality of our situation. And it matched their financial application and in that communication. So the biggest thing you can do to help your case is to be very active in the application process. Be very personable. Share lots of contact. They'll ask you to fill out forms, but when you fill out forms, follow it up with personal emails to that person, and then find out who the financial aid person is and build a relationship with that person, and share your story. That's the most distinctive. Most of my applicants get a lot more financial aid than they were expecting, because they build a strong personal relationship with the people that are making the decision at the school.
Okay. Yeah, I guess some of the colleges were transparent. They said that if you meet these criteria, this is what you will get. And some of the colleges, it wasn't very clear. So The
sometimes,
reason why I'm asking you, sorry, the reason why
yeah,
I'm
no,
asking is if there is something which I need to build from now to show that, okay, next 1 year, uh, I mean, if there are some certificates or activities to showcase just to build my case, I mean, I can just start now instead of just waiting on the
yeah,
next year.
and on the financial side, I don't know that there's a whole lot you can do unless you come across an external scholarship that's looking for something. But in general, the scholarships are related to your known ability, you know, that those kind of benchmark lines, and then need based, and the need is just about is about relationship.
So need is based on relationship and not on, typically they will look at annual family income and then you say, okay, give us your declare your annual family income.
They
Get it
are
certified.
they are going to ask that, but it's a human making the decision, and if the human
Okay,
wants to help you, they're more likely to find the money than if they don't.
nice. Nice. So you're saying that it is more than the number. I think that's an important piece which is there. Right. Scott, this was really useful. I've noted 2 points. One is you're going to send me a checklist for the colleges. I was really impressed with that thing which you built on.
Yep.
And the link for a parent board in case it exists. This conversation almost looked like a one-on-one conversation. I don't know whether I exceeded my time, but it was really, really useful for me. I really thank you for taking your time and reaching out to me.
I'm glad it was useful, and hopefully this is the beginning of more conversation. We'll definitely want to get you in on the next time we do a roundtable.
So would you like
I'll send
me to send you my email ID so that you can send across these checklists and the link
yes,
for passport?
yes, please.
Yeah, because
Just
I
put it
don't know LinkedIn.
just put it in the chat box, and then I'll have it in the
Right
recording.
away. Yeah. Thank you. I'll just do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just posted that.
Okay, there, I got it.
Right. Scott,
Very good.
anything else which I need to know?
I think that's it. If there's something else,
And in case of roundtable, whatever, whenever it is, don't worry, I'll be there. This
okay.
time actually suited me because I typically
Wonderful.
leave for, this is 7:30 in the morning in India, and I typically leave for work around 8:15. So it actually worked for me.
Okay.
But doesn't matter. This is a priority. So whatever time you call me, I'll be there. Don't worry about that.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Wish you and your daughter the best.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Right.
Angie. Yeah. Thank
you.
Yep. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right.